concerts throughout the month of December. So please be sure to check that out. Just a reminder that we will be utilizing Parent Square to assist in messaging out information regarding inclement weather. We will also be posting information on our school website and sharing school cancellation notifications with the local media. We're having an eye right now on some interesting stuff taking place this week, and with the high school scheduling a fun day that day before break, we kind of know what that usually leads to as well. So expect a snowstorm on the 23rd. This past Friday, I had an opportunity to attend a Baird workshop with Kim. Baird is a company that we work with to help us set up our budget forecasting. The workshop took place at CISA 7, and we spent time reviewing the components of our budget forecasting model. I will say I was very impressed, as always, but with the number of scenarios in which Baird shared considerations, and we need to make sure we're in our formula. And I would look at Kim and she'd say, so it was a really good opportunity for me to learn along with Kim and have her teach me, as well as have Baird kind of show us how they go through the forecasting process. We received some preliminary enrollment projections from the Wisconsin Applied Population Lab that we will be reviewing with our administrative team. One item I want the board to keep in mind and kind of plant the seed for is that as we look at potentially a decrease in funding from the state, that will have an impact on our ability to short-term borrow in the future, or obviously our need to short-term borrow in the future. So as we see our property values increase, that means that we're seeing a reduction in aid. And so you might see that number that we're asking for short-term borrowing to be more than what we maybe have in the past. And that's really a result of just the way the state aid formula is functioning and needing to have more money to kind of cover ourselves when we get into that November crunch for our funds. All right. John Dunks and I were presented with some big checks on December 3rd. The district secured over $35,000 from WIPI, is a WPPI Energy, and Focus on Energy for energy efficiency work completed at OFMS. And John and I looked really good in our shirt and tie. Our board safety committee met last week. I was able to provide the committee with an update on our district safety team planning. And also last week, OFMS hosted the O'Connell Falls Fire Department. Members of the OFFD had a chance to walk through the building. A huge thank you to John Dunks and John Spice for organizing the event, and then also huge shout out to Mike Bushier for being available to answer questions and assist in showing our local firefighters around the building. After a review from our administrative team, we will be moving forward with Joe Schrader Consulting to facilitate the strategic planning process this coming spring. That's an item that is not needed for board approval due to the amount. I just want to make sure that we're going to be investing in that process, but I just want to make sure that you're all aware of that. And we're excited to get underway with that work. Our admin team will soon begin the staffing process for the 26-27 school year. So it's kind of hard to believe, but that's where we're at this time of year. Progress is being made on identifying staff to fill our bus route vacancy. I wanted to provide the board and community another update on the baseball field project taking place at OFMS on the OFMS property. So earlier this fall, Mike Bushy and I had a chance to meet with Point of Beginning. During that conversation, POB felt it was in our best interest to wait until January to go to bid for the project. In their experience, companies interested in participating in the scope of work that we are attempting to have completed are either finishing up work in November and December, or they're taking time away from their families during the holiday season. POB felt that waiting until January would increase the likelihood of a competitive bidding process, while not impacting our ability to complete the project in our time frame. So with that being said, we plan on going to bid in January and presenting information to the board in February. Does anybody have any questions about that process at all? We had 4 staff cohorts participate in our Initiative 1 training process this fall. The district training team is set to meet in the coming weeks to discuss our process and dates for this coming spring. Thank you to Amy Bramer, Debbie Woods, and Kim Sinclair for their work with the annual open benefit enrollment process. That's a huge undertaking, and we're glad that we have them on our team to help us through that process. The last update for the board is that you will all be receiving a copy, if you haven't already, of the WASB resolutions that will be reviewed at the convention this January. This is mine. Printed it off. Looks really nice. I would ask that you please review that information as we will discuss any specific considerations at our next meeting that the board would like to provide guidance for Chad as he goes through that process, serving as our delegate. He's really excited about that. And then the other piece is Emily will be serving as our alternate for that delegation. So that's all I got from my update. I know it's only been like 2 weeks of school since we've had our last meeting, but a lot going on. All right.
All right. Next up, state report card highlights. Ms. Kangas.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight to share our report card results, talk to you a little bit about the data, and share some of the work that we've been doing in the district in response that helped to lead to this data and in response to the data. But before we dive into the report card, you should know that this year the state made some changes in their calculations for the state report card. So there are some things with this report card that we can compare to past report cards and other things that we cannot compare to past report cards. So we should not be comparing the overall scores and ratings to past report cards because they did change some of the calculations. Priority area scores, except for growth, the growth calculation remained the same. And achievement component scores. That's the ELA score and the math score feeding into achievement. But you can compare to past years our growth, attendance and absenteeism, and graduation.
Just one quick question.
Sure.
There was a lot of, buzz last year and concerns, complaints around the state about that. I mean, were some of these, like some of the changes year over year, was that a result of kind of the vocal nature?
I think that they would have made adjustments to this because they made the changes last year with the state assessments as far as like the cut scores and the assessments themselves. It would be natural that they would then next year need to make some adjustments to the report card in response to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that this is my opinion. I don't believe that this was just in response to some of the concerns that people raised about the changes that they made to the assessment, that this would have happened, that they need to make some adjustments as they go through. Like this version of the report card looks very different from the first version of the state report cards that came out. Sure. And that evolves over time.
Okay.
So it is very exciting to stand in front of you and I'm sure you all know this already, but the district achieved exceeds expectations as our rating. This is the first time since I've been here. I believe it's been 10 years since the last time the district had that rating. And so I think it's important to pause and to celebrate that and to recognize all of the hard work that has been happening across the district that led to this outcome. You've heard me say before that the report card is not the end all be all, it just tells part of our story, but this is recognizing some of the hard work that has happened across the district, and so that's really exciting for us to see. There are 4 different priority areas, as you know from my past report card presentations. They are achievement, growth, target group outcomes, and on track to graduation. The districts get scores in each of those areas, and each of those scores gets a particular weight. This year, it happened to come out evenly, 25% for each of the priority areas, and that is due to our students who are economically disadvantaged was exactly at 35%, and so that's how our weights came out at 25%. If you took a look at some of the individual buildings, their weights are different for their priority areas. So if we dig a little deeper and take a look at the individual buildings, not only did the district receive exceeds expectations, but Abrams and Washington, and I say Washington because report card is for last year, did as well. But I want to draw your attention to the O'Connell Falls Elementary score over here. The threshold for exceeds expectations is 71. And actually last year was 70. That was one of the things that they changed is they increased the threshold for the different rating areas. And so O'Connell Falls Elementary School is actually very close to also getting and exceeds expectations. I have the previous scores up here as well, but again, a reminder, you're not supposed to compare to the previous years. So part of the calculation for the state report card is based on our student demographics. These are our demographics for our last school year. And again, you see that we're exactly at 35% for economically disadvantaged. That's the state assessment system did not have any changes to it. The scores for the state assessments go into many of the different calculations for the state report card, and we did not see any changes to those assessments last year. Some additional data sources include graduation rate, absenteeism rate, and dropout rate. Those do figure into calculations. The other data sources that are listed there are provided on the report card, but they don't figure into the calculations for informational purposes only, that they share that information. So diving right into the data. Oconto Falls is the red line, and the state is the blue line. And you can see that last year on the ACT, only our 11th graders take the ACT. Oconto Falls students were below the state average as far as the number of students who met the state benchmark of being proficient or advanced. For math, we're the red line. We were above the state average for proficient or advanced. Now, I do want to point out that even though if you looked at both of those graphs, you saw that last year's group, our ACT score and achievement scores were lower, but that group did show a lot of growth from the previous year. So that is another part of the calculation. A lot of these graphs are just showing like where we're falling with achievement, but keep in mind that growth is very important as part of our calculation for the state report card. Our 9th and 10th graders take the pre-ACT. This graph is showing their performance on the ELA portion of the pre-ACT. You can see that Oconto Falls students performed below the state average. And in math, they performed above. The Ford exam, all of our elementary and middle school students complete the Ford exam. So this data is for ELA for grades 3 through 8. And you can see that while for the prior 2 years, we're pretty close to where the state was, this year, Oconto Falls performed higher than the state average for grades 3 through 8 on ELA. I did want to show you how it separates out. It's hard to read. This top line is Abrams. You're looking at the students who are in the teal and the blue. Those are students who are meeting or advanced. Here is Oconto Falls Elementary School, and here is Washington Middle School. And when we take a look at these graphs, we're also interested in seeing not only which of our students are meeting that expectation, we also like to take a look at that far end to see how large this group is, that is our group of students who have the largest skill gaps, because we really want to see that shrink as well as that far end grow. So with this ELA data by school, both of our elementary schools performed a little bit lower than the previous year on ELA. But Washington Middle School had a double-digit increase in the percentage of students who were meeting or exceeding the expectation. Our forward math data, you can see that our Oconto Falls students in grades 3 through 8 performed higher in math than the state average. And here's a breakdown by schools. And again, if you're looking at also that gray group at the bottom, the RVA students, they opted out of testing. Okay. And so that's why we don't have data for them. So again, remember I talked about looking at how the size of that orange, you can see that for Abrams, the percentage of students who are in that developing category is very low for them in math. And similar to the ELA forward results, both Abrams and O'Connell Falls Elementary School, their scores last year were a little bit, the percentage of students who met the state benchmark were a little bit lower than the previous year. But again, O'Connell Falls Middle School or Washington had a double-digit increase in the percentage of students. And one of the scores that goes into our district on track to graduation is 8th grade math score. And for our 8th grade math score last year, they had less than 1% of students that were in that developing category. They really had some outstanding math results. So then moving into another data point, chronic absenteeism. We've taken a look at this a couple of times over the past couple of years. We know that this 21-22 school year was when we seem to have the highest percentage of students who are chronically absent. Again, that's students missing 10% of more possible school days. For the calculation for the report card, this is lagged data, just as a reminder. So the 23-24 school year is the most recent school year of data, and they use 3 years of data in the calculation. So this 21-22 school year is still hanging in there, but next year that data will fall off, and we'll have a new 3-year set of data. This far right column is showing what is unofficially our data. This hasn't been collected by the state, actually be collected tomorrow as part of the December snapshot. You can see that we have a slight increase overall as a district, and that's due to increases happening at both of the elementary schools. But both of our secondary schools are showing a decrease in chronic absenteeism. Again, this is an area where we really need support of families to help us with this, to help to ensure that they're helping their students be in school so they can be present for the learning. This information is not part of our calculation, but this is reporting out the number of students that are involved in some of our post-secondary preparation opportunities, which include AP courses, dual enrollment courses, industry-recognized credentials, and work-based learning. So these are the numbers of students in the 23-24 school year who participated. And this is comparable to what we've had in past years. And this is our arts participation for the 23-24 school year. Again, we don't have any students in dance. We don't offer that. But we have really high participation in our arts here, which is something to be proud of. So how do we respond to this data? These are all things that you have seen before. You know that these are things that we're working on, that we spend a lot of time in the summer creating opportunities for staff to get professional development. There's a lot of curriculum work that's happening over the summer. We provide the Summer Institute for teachers as an opportunity for them to take graduate level courses that are taught by the 3 district directors and then allow them to advance on the alternative compensation model. An important part of the work that we do is we have teams in each of the buildings that consist of administration and teachers. They have discussions about the important work of learning and how that's moving forward within their building. We offer professional development through the school year, both required PD on our PD days, but also optional opportunities in evenings. There are data meetings that are happening across the district to take a look at our student data and to make some decisions that inform the work that we're doing with students so we continue to help them with their learning. There's RTI time that's built into the daily student schedule at all of our grade levels. And we have elementary math and reading interventionists. Now, I did want to highlight some of the things that we are doing this year. The first 4 bullet points are all happening at the elementary level, and they're part of that very focused work that we're doing with student literacy. Some of it is in response directly to Act 20, and some of it is we have learned more about what students need in order to be better readers. That's this work that we're doing to improve that. So there are elementary data meetings for ELA and math that are happening monthly. So it's happening at the grade level in their buildings during a prep time that they're coming together to take a look at that data. We have implemented personal reading plans. We have over 120 students between kindergarten and 3rd grade who are currently on a personal reading plan. Just as a reminder from that Act 20 presentation that we got, what does that look like? So we have students we've identified have this need. We've identified specific skill or skills they need to work on and the interventions that are going to address that skill gap. There is an adult who is assigned to then deliver that intervention to the student. They are doing that. They're weekly assessing that student's progress and reporting back, recording that student's progress. As you can imagine, that takes a tremendous amount of time and effort to do that and to do it well. This is also the first year we adopted a new ELA resource at the elementary level. And while there's a lot of enthusiasm for the choice, it is very intense as far as the amount of preparation this first year that goes into teachers being able to implement this resource. This isn't a plug and play, but there's just a script to read. They need to really know and understand the lessons that they're teaching. And so there's a lot, that's additional work that is happening this year. Also, if you know any fourth or fifth graders, like this is a more rigorous resource than what we have had previously. So for our students, for the teachers of those grade levels, the rigor has increased. And whereas if they come all the way through with that resource, their skill level is at that point. But right now for those upper grades, there's a skill gap that teachers are also making plans that they need to address for those students. So there's a lot going into that resource work. We've also adopted a walk to read model for grades K through 3 at Abrams and grades 1 to 3 at OFPS. And so what that looks like is for their foundational skills, students, rather than just staying with their classroom teacher and working on those skills, instead the entire grade level has gotten together at the data meetings and they know where the skills are for all the students across the grade level. And they group students according to their skills. And they might go to a different classroom then to work. So they're with their peers who are working on the same skills. So this is an all hands on deck model. It also includes our interventionists. And it requires a lot of planning and collaboration to make that work. So all 4 of those things, if you haven't talked to any elementary teachers recently, just reach out to them, check in a little bit. Tell them you've heard about all the work they're doing and that you appreciate it because it's a lot for them to do this year. We have literacy-focused professional development for grades 4 through 12. We're continuing work with science of reading at the elementary level. That's being delivered through Cox Campus and also our reading specialists. And we have work that's, we've been continuing with Dr. Dickey of Educational Epiphany with his high impact instructional practices, which really at their core are about addressing literacy. And at the high school level, we have core department leaders who are taking a more active role in the application of those high impact instructional practices. So I have some pictures to share with you of some of the work. So I already talked to you about what the elementary teachers are doing now. Over the summer, they also put in a lot of work. They read the book that's in the middle, pictured in the middle there, Your Curriculum Companions, over 400 pages. June and July, they met in book study groups and had discussions around that book. And then in August, they came together for either 2 or 3 full days, depending on what they teach, and got professional learning on teaching the resource. So that is work that they did over the summer. This is a group of teachers who are part of my Summer Institute class that I taught last summer, which is on visible learning for teachers and some of the research work that they would do to help to improve some student learning in their own classrooms. Here's some pictures of work with Dr. Dickey of Educational Epiphany. On the left here, he's working with a group of teachers talking about high impact instructional practice number 4. And on the right, he is here showing or demonstrating those practices with our students, modeling that, and there are teachers who are observing him teaching over at the middle school, so they can see it in action. It's also really important that we continue to learn as leaders. And so some of the learning that I'm involved in to help me as Director of Teaching and Learning is through CISA 8 with their leadership and literacy, and also for leadership with Initiative 1. And finally, I end with this message. It's consistent: growth for all with support from all, because truly, we're only going to see everyone grow when we have everyone who are working with us and supporting us.
Yes.
So what questions do you have for us?
I just have one thought. So appreciation of all of the hard work that's going in right now. It's unbelievable when we go through and we're putting it on paper, what is happening all at the same time while teaching. I mean, it's unreal.
Yes.
My message to parents, that slide that we saw with the increase in habitual absences, if we do not have your kids here, all of the work that is being done is not nearly as impactful as it could be if you are here, if the kids are here. So parents, if you're listening, or if anybody's listening, we're certainly not advocating to have sick kids in school, but that number is a little bit too high for us to be able to make the impact that we want to. So please make sure your kiddos are in school.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Heather.
Yes, you're welcome.
Heather, can you talk about one of your last comments about the professional development, that the high school department leads are taking a more active role in Educational Epiphany? What does that look like? And in comparison to what the middle school perhaps has been doing to implement the same program?
So at the middle school level, they have structure within their schedule where they've had opportunities both as departments, so department leads were already involved in regular meetings and talking about and applying Educational Epiphany strategies, and also at grade level team meetings, they were doing that work. So we see, like at the middle school, there's been this very strong focus on that work. Everyone's pointed in the same direction and pulling in the same direction. And we have really seen the impact on that work on the data. At the high school level, they don't have the same structure where they have those regular meetings that are set up at that department level or at the grade level for them to have the same opportunities, for them to have those really important conversations regularly about how they're applying the practices and what it is they're doing. And so we have gotten the department leads more involved in this so that they can then think and strategize with us and work with us as a team to help us build the capacity of teachers first in the core departments, and then thinking about how that spreads out across the encores. So we have, and when I take a look at the two buildings, teachers in both these buildings are working very hard. But there is a difference when you have everyone pulling in the same direction versus when people are working really hard, but you're kind of spread out more. And you're not all pulling in the same direction. And so we think that having the department leaders involved more actively in the work of Educational Epiphany will help us to help streamline people and help us start pulling in the same direction at the high school. Steve and Ellie, since they have come in, they spent the summer working with Dr. Dickey to get up to speed on the work we're doing.
Sure.
And they also then have been working with Dr. Dickey to do some work to try to figure out what are some of the barriers at the high school level that have prevented some of the same changes and work happening there that did happen at the middle school.
Good. That's good. It's hard not to notice the report card scores of the middle school, and John, congratulations on just an incredible, proud achievement to you and all the staff at your building. That should not go unnoticed. In your professional opinion, do you think that the work done with Educational Epiphany was those scores were a result of the adoption of Educational Epiphany more so maybe at the middle school than at the high school when you're
I think
comparing
there's
those scores?
definitely a factor.
Okay. I think that's very important to call out, that And I think there's like that proverb that was like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I just think it's incredible that, I'm speaking in generalities here, though, that the middle school has really embraced that, knowing that it's extra work and it's hard work. But the middle school that really has embraced that. And I'm really encouraged to hear that the department leads at the high school are taking extra effort into doing that as well. And I really, really hope that that starts to pay in some dividends this year and the following years.
And I think it's important to recognize too that, this is my 5th year in the district, and it's the 3rd principal at the high school, 2nd assistant principal, and also my former high school teacher. So I kind of know like the mindset, and when there's so much change happening, sometimes it's hard to build trust in. Is this change, is this going to be consistent? Do I really invest all of my time into this, and moving it forward? And so sometimes it's a little bit of sit back, let's wait and see what is going to happen also, that can impact that. So it's different between, when I look at the 2 buildings, as far as structures are in place that are already built in, that can support the work. And also, it's a difference. And one thing that occurred to me is that at the middle school level, we have a lot of teachers who are elementary certified. And so they were trained also in teaching reading and that literacy. And so that's another piece too, I think, that helps them to know and understand and to latch onto some of the work of educational epiphany. Because when you're a kind of teacher at the high school level, and a lot of times you love that content that you teach, you're passionate about that, and sometimes it is harder to see or to recognize the value in bringing in something else to the work that you're doing.
Definitely.
Good insight.
Yeah, very much so.
Is educational epiphany more of like a strategy that's used in later grades of schooling, or is that something that's used in the early grades as well?
It's used in the early grades as well.
Has there been any conversation around integrating that into the elementary schools?
Yes. Yeah, and because it would be great to be consistent across the entire district. Because one of the core ideas with the 2nd practice is that we have this common academic language. And so terms like analysis, citation means exactly the same thing in every classroom across the district. And so, but what's very encouraging is that even though we haven't started this work at the elementary level, our new ELA resource already implements a lot of these practices. So it is not going to feel so foreign to our elementary teachers when we do move this work down to the elementary level. Now, we just saw how much work we're doing right now. We are not going to next year be adding that layer to them. But as far as my long range plan, yes, it is my intention. And elementary level teachers have already been asking me about that, and secondary teachers have too. Like, we're also going to do this at that level, so we're consistent across the district.
Awesome.
That's really encouraging to hear that new curriculum is so well aligned with that. And I think that's just very telling about the amount of foresight and work and intentional looking ahead that your team and all of the teams have been doing. I just think that's just incredible that everything just fits together. So
I think
that's
it
great work.
starts with that foundation, and I think when everyone is on the same page, and I think the verbiage counts, and the teaching ways count, and when we can build on that, I mean, we're only going to go up from here.
Yes.
I personally, this is one of my favorite presentations of the entire year, because at the end of the day, we are here to educate kids. And I am very thankful for all of the work the teachers and the staff, everyone in every single building is doing, especially at the elementary level with the changes. But in general, just all the staff, all of the work that you've done, the parents and the kids. This is what we're here for, and to see it, to see the numbers is pretty amazing. Thank you for that.
think we're gonna be really excited to see the achievement and growth scores in ELA over the next couple years. Because if you look at the math scores at the OFPS and Abrams levels over the last 5 years, I know you can't compare this year's data to last, but if you just look at the like the trajectory of where those levels were before Bridges, that curriculum was established, and then the years after, I mean, the growth is insane, and it's amazing what, I mean, like you talk about just the added work and complexity in bringing in a new curriculum, but I mean, it pays off in huge dividends when you see it from the math point of view. So I'm really excited to see what this can do for ELA.
And when you see it in your own kids.
Yes.
Incredible. Honestly, like as a parent, one of the coolest things I've been able to see and witness is my kids, the change in learning from one curriculum to the next. I saw it in Bridges with my daughter in 3rd grade, and I'm seeing it with my son in 4th grade right now with EL. It's honestly incredible to see. It's the coolest thing. So, and credit
so glad
to
to
the
hear that.
teachers, credit to you, credit to the teachers. Awesome work. Really cool.
And just to clarify one thing you said just a moment ago, Emily, you can't, so test scores from the last 2 years, you can compare. So they made the changes to the state assessment. It's just on the report card, the different school, the achievements, the different priority areas, you can't compare to.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, because
Yes.
I made a chart of achievement and growth scores from the report cards. And so I was looking at year over year. But if, I mean, even if you look at like 21, 22 school year compared to 23, 24 school year, which I think you can compare. I mean, the jump in math is like over 10, 12 percentage points
Yes.
in 2 years. It's, I mean, that, so yeah, you still can't compare last year's data, but I mean, they're still trending in a really, really fantastic direction. So yeah, it was actually, I should share that. Well, I'm going to share this. I was listening to a podcast the other day about a gentleman from a professor at Princeton, and he talked about how his students do not know how to read. They know how to read like books to answer a question, but they don't know how to read to like make them feel something. And he was talking about different ways that educators can really start like teaching our kids how to read and how to feel and how to analyze. I was like, we are doing that in Okata Falls, Wisconsin with this ELA curriculum. Like we are actually asking our 4th graders, how do you feel about this passage? What does this make you feel like? And I mean, that is a skill that for some reason we neglected for a very long time. And professors in Princeton are noticing, but it's really cool to see that there's this gap that we are like noticing across our society, and that, you know, Okata Falls, Wisconsin, we're actually trying to narrow that, and that's really, really incredible. So thank you, Heather.
Well, I'm just one part of the team.
Thank you to everybody.
Heather, quick question. You know, one thing that kind of pops out, at least to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, is just we've spoken a little bit about this, and we're making great strides overall, we're making great strides, and great strides certainly at the elementaries as we're implementing new things in the middle school. The ELA in like the Aspire pre-ACT and ACT group, like that's the place where I go, and I hear that we're trying to get everyone pulling in the same direction, but how's everyone like rapidly saying these students that are in these grades right now, that they're not going to have the benefit of going through, like,
Right.
can you just frame that out a little bit above our weight class as it pertains to those scores relative to the state?
Yeah, and I feel like, so first of all, one of the things that we did last year that happened again this year is that students in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade take either pre-ACT or a practice ACT through Methodize to help us to get some data this time of year to identify at the individual student level where there are some of those gaps, and to have them to take a look at that information and figure out then, are there some areas that we need to be addressing within the ELA classes? I know that today our instructional support teacher, Coach Candy Benke, was in the 11th grade classrooms for ELA, working with those students to take a look at their results specifically. And through Methodize, there are some individual lessons and some practice that they can do to address. But then also their instructor, Sesbang McGee, can also take a look at that data and say, okay, this is some of the types of writing skills that we need to work on with our students, or here are some analysis skills that we need to work on. So this pre-test data helps to launch some of that work in order to prepare students. We also then, though, need to take a look at, there's continuous work that's happening with taking a look at our units that we are in our curriculum that we are using, because at the high school level, there's not like one curriculum resource that we use, that we have created the units essentially. So there's this constant refinement that's happening as well.
Any other?
And I do also want to say that our results that we got last year on the pre-ACT, the scores were in many instances lower than what we saw in the fall from that same group of students, which also is an indication of perhaps not fully taking it seriously, and it's not necessarily representative of their skill level. If they didn't, or they just rushed through the pre-ACT, if they didn't find value as they're sitting down and taking it.
I had that exact discussion with my kid that took a pre-ACT test last week.
All right.
This has value, you need to try it.
I had heard that from a student that took one of those, that it was actually like either very comparable or potentially even the same pre-ACT as prior taking or something. Is the test
So
different?
they make
always?
sure that the same group of students, so Methodize has 2 retired ACTs, but the group of students, they don't take the same one as the prior year, they take a different test. And then the other group does the pre-ACT. So they should not have been the same assessment.
Okay.
But the pre-ACT that's taken in the fall will be very similar to the pre-ACT that's taken in the spring as part of the state assessment. So if you're a freshman or sophomore, it's kind of like if you took the ACT was so nice to me, I took it thrice, you know, like.
So if you have a junior right now, they took the pre-ACT in the spring, and then this one that they just took are gonna be very similar.
Well, if you're a freshman
Yeah.
or sophomore, you take the pre-ACT
Oh, yeah.
in the fall.
Yep.
You take it in the spring.
That's right.
Hmm.
I'm
And then
senior.
juniors will
I'm
take
senior,
the.
not a junior.
I had a now junior
Yeah.
assume that it was very similar to what they had, or like,
Methodize might be,
maybe not, but
yeah, I don't know.
I was just curious how
Yeah.
that worked. But, okay.
Um,
Any other?
Yeah, because I can't stop talking about it. I find it very interesting that one of the WASB resolutions that they're going forward with or voting on at the state convention has a lot to do with the report card. And one of the considerations that some schools want considered in the scoring is including fiscal efficiency in report card scoring. And I find that very interesting, especially from the lens of our district's journey over the last 10 years. And, we've heard comments about how, we're finally back to where we were in terms of scores like a decade ago, but just think of the journey that this district has been on in the last 10 years and the decisions, the really difficult, challenging fiscal decisions that we have had to make in the last 10 years that don't necessarily equate to positive report card results. I mean, I don't know if anyone read the news about what's going on in Oshkosh, but they're projecting a $6 million budget deficit for 26-27. And that, so they're talking about removing 70 FTE from their staff, which I think is about equivalent to about maybe 18-20 FTE in O'Connell Falls, if I did the math right. So they're kind of where we were, a few years ago. And, I think sometimes having a balanced budget can indirectly hurt our scores, because in the case of Oshkosh, they're losing several reading interventionalists. They're losing, they may potentially be losing those key resources that really help improve test scores. And so I think about like just the journey that we've been on to get to a balanced budget can say that we're looking in the green for the next couple of years. We've finally been able to get like that stuff out of the way, all that stuff out of the way now, so we can actually focus on student achievement. Like our eyes can be like set more on student achievement and not worrying about money as much. I think that's really a powerful message just to think about, just a beautiful reflection on the leadership and the admin team, and the work that the board has done over the last decade to get us to that point. It should not be dismissed. So.
Very good. Any other comments, questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Great news. All right, on to old business donations.
All right, I have to take a look here. Donations before the board here. We do have, as I said, John and I got some really big checks last week, but we'll work to determine if that goes. Is that a donation, Kim, or I'll look at Kim. We'll figure that out. If we have to add that to the January total, we will. But just know that I encourage you to take a look at those, and if you have any questions, ask. Otherwise, we're more than happy to recommend you consider approving.
I'll move to approve the donations as presented.
Second.
Motion by Emily, second by Jenny. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, capital referendum update.
So I don't have a presentation or PowerPoint for you now regarding the capital referendum. Had a chance to talk to Kim and just wanted to provide the board with some updates, similar to what we went through in October as far as having kind of a weight approach on any kind of change orders is the same approach we're going to take for this one. So just a couple of updates as far as raising WMS, work continues to move forward. Just a reminder to everyone, anybody that's listening, that we did go through an asbestos abatement process prior to demolition. I know as we're taking those walls down, there might be some questions that come up. Part of the agreement is that the water needs to be used during the demolition process. We did get some feedback from Nexus that indicated that it is happening. We've seen other people have also expressed that they've seen that taking place. In our conversation with Mike Frayling, he did allude to one situation that occurred when they were taking the roof off the old gym. There was a decision that was made to try to take that area down prior to the end of the day. It was kind of dark and not wanting to leave that structure in place. And so he said there was the hose was damaged at that time. So if anybody saw anything that dust related, it could have been related to that, but has since been replaced. And like I said, we've had reports of that water taking place and helping to try to keep that dust down as much as possible.
Right, so it's dust, it's not asbestos. We just need to clarify that. Asbestos was taken care of prior to demolition.
Very long
Yes.
abatement process.
Yes, the
Yes.
water is being used to keep the construction dust down.
There was a question that came up last month about the locker room floors. So just following up from that meeting, Mike has been in contact with Nexus, Mike Bushy. This project to address those flooring it's going to take us a couple of days, maybe like 3 or 4 days without students in the building to try to make sure that's taken care of. So Mike is working on a time frame in which we can address that situation without having students or anybody in the building. And so just know that is still on our priority list, and it might not be until late spring or early summer before we get a chance to get that taken care of, but just know that is still an item that we're continuing to pursue. As we transition into the normal routine of the building, our team has taken over incidents that occur and will contact Nexus as needed. So, there's maintenance things that pop up that just kind of come in with the normal routines of working on a building. If it's something that is a result of, construction related, we'll obviously reach out to Nexus, but there's definitely more of the transition of that ownership of us, when I say us, Mike and his team taking the lead on things that pop up. And I trust and value their judgment on knowing when to call and when to say, no, this is just part of the normal wear and tear of things we have to fix from a school building standpoint. Kim will be meeting with Brent later this month. We also have a meeting later this week maybe, with Nexus to kind of talk about the process. And then Kim's meeting with Brent will primarily focus on reconciling any questions that remain about billing and payment. So we have not yet paid off all of our final installments to Nexus. We'll be going through that. Kim will be working through that process, and obviously we'll be communicating. Her and I will be as we near the end, and then we'll present any change orders to the board once those items are finalized, and we feel like we're ready to move forward with another set of payments. So, all right.
The final payment won't be done until all the punch lists are done, correct?
That's my understanding. Yeah, that we'll have a
when we fix
plan in
that,
place.
They don't get a payment till that,
Yeah.
them floors are complete.
And I don't know, Chad, I'd have to ask them whether it's a situation where we have it in writing that this is when it's going to be addressed. I know there's some questions right now about there was some paint that need to be done. We know that that's going to be taken care of in the summer just because of the student population being out of the building. So we'll make sure that we work through that process with them. Something, whether it's in writing before we make that final payment, or if we wait until this is kind of new for me, so
I prefer to wait until it was 100% done.
understood.
I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
And I can look into see how that process works. But
And then did anybody go walk through the building with that punch list to make sure everything did get fixed?
I have not gone through there since the recently, at least with the punch list. And I'll look to John to see if there's anything that he has.
Yeah, I
That's come
mean,
up.
we've been monitoring it, so as things have gotten checked off the list, there's been a few things that have been done that we've asked to redo that was not up to par, so.
I guess if Mike or you have any concerns, then bring those to us, but otherwise, you know.
Yeah. Or just reach out to me if you have any. So, all right.
So do we have to make something so we make sure we don't pay until that punch list is done?
What I would ask is if you would give me the opportunity to look into that process, and I can present that at the next meeting. I don't want you to make a decision as a board right now. Pardon me. I would advise you not to make a decision as the board right now until I have a chance to look into that and get back to you about how that process.
Not all of us
and
have seen that
procedures
punch list, we
We're
wouldn't
not.
be able to make a decision.
Does that make sense? I don't want you to make a decision. I would advise you not to make a decision right now until I can have a sit down conversation with Kim and talk about what our contract says so that we're not doing anything that would potentially violate our contract
Right.
with them.
And we're not looking to make any or finalize payments like between now and the end of the year, or our next meeting or anything like that, right? So,
No, there's still money that is owed yet.
okay, all right. Then I think we'd be fine to wait on that.
All right.
Okay, so no action.
No action, no, just
Okay.
just an update. So
All right. So no action.
I'll make a note of that too, Chad, just to
All right.
make sure
Thank you.
square away.
All right, next up, new business, IRS Energy Investment Tax Credit Proposal.
Well, I know Kim is really excited to present. So we have actually she'll kind of walk through the proposal that she has to the board today. I'll stop talking. And take over.
So in your packet, you actually have the proposal. So basically, back in 2022, there was the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed into law. And from that, public schools, or actually any governmental entity, if they do certain types of projects, can get a tax credit, but we don't file a tax return. So this is a big change. Up until recently, I didn't think we were eligible for it because it relates to solar, which when Nexus was here, they talked about that, because that's how it would be affordable. Geothermal, and then something about related to energy that gets stored into the battery components. But this Alliant group that is in this packet here today is what Nexus is using, so Nexus also can get a tax credit. It doesn't hurt our tax credit, it's separate. And they're using this Alliant group. And in my past life, before I worked at the school district, I did corporate tax for many years, so these types of arrangements are very familiar to me, where you do it on a contingent basis, where you only pay if they get you money. And I remember a lot of the percentages that were charged over time. So this company is proposing that whatever they find, they would take 10% of it or up to $70,000. So that would mean they would have to find us $700,000, right? So this could be a big deal. Now they seem to think that some of our HVAC systems, which we spent about $4 million on, would qualify for this, but they have to go through the process of digging into all of that. But on this, at the same time, they're doing the same work, but for Nexus. So this is why normally I would go to bid and get 3 different companies, but being that they're already working with Nexus, Nexus has worked with them for years. They've come highly recommended. I also spoke with our auditors, and they thought that the rates that they're charging are very reasonable. But this, if we do get the money, if we do get any money, it's federal monies. So that is very regulated. So in order to do this, I'm asking tonight if you would be willing to approve that we go with this contract. It's a sole source, meaning that I didn't go to bid with anyone else. And then that's in the minutes to show that the board was in agreement with that. And we're gaining the efficiencies. But if you would want me to go to bid, I could do that. I just thought I would come forward with where I'm at today.
So it's 10% of what they can find, and then $5,000 flat fee for the e-filing, right?
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Some out-of-pocket stuff, but they've already traveled here and looked at our facilities for Nexus. So while they were here, I had them gather information for O'Connell Falls.
Okay.
Stuff, so hopefully that'll keep down on that $5,000 fee.
I don't have any concerns.
No.
Seems to make sense to me.
Okay, so I would, if in the motion, if we could use the word sole source provider, I would appreciate that.
So looking for a motion? Anyone so?
I will make a motion to accept the proposal to engage with this consulting firm as the sole source for this tax credit proposal.
Motion by Emily,
I'll second.
second by Jenny. Any other questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, I hope we get a lot of money.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the homework, Kim.
All right, next we're looking to move into closed session.
I'll move the board, move into closed session according to Wisconsin statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in Wisconsin statute 19.851F to consider financial, medical, social, personal history that if discussed in public is likely to have a substantial adverse effect on such person's reputation, specifically to discuss personal matters and to discuss specific student information. Second.
Motion by Brian, second by Chad. Sarah, when you're ready.
Hill,
Yes.
Trudeau,
Yes.
O'Harroll,
Yes.
Early,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Schindel, yes, Gardner.
Yes. Motion carried. What time do we have? 7:38. I'll take a very short recess and be enclosed.